Oi, gente, aqui é a Bruna, bem-vindos a mais uma live aqui do canal. Mil desculpas pela demora aqui, tivemos uns problemas técnicos, mas tudo certo, tudo funcionando agora. E eu tô aqui com o Thomas. I don't know how to say your last name, I'm sorry.
Try it.
OLDE HEUVELT?
OLDE HEUVELT. Very good.
Almost, ok. Então, gente, a gente vai conversar sobre Hex, que é o livro de lançamento do Thomas aqui pela Dark Side Books, que tornou essa live muito possível. Muito obrigada a todos. Eu vou conversar com o Thomas em inglês. Quem estava aqui na live com a Kimberly viu que a gente teve a tradução da Tassi acompanhando a gente. A Tassi está aqui de novo para ajudar. E ela vai estar traduzindo a live no chat. Então, se você não fala inglês, não se preocupa. Só ficar de olho no chat que ela vai estar traduzindo tudo. As perguntas também vão estar lá. Todo mundo pronto? If you guys are here because you're already a Thomas fan, welcome. We'll be doing the whole chat, the whole live stream in English, so you can watch it and keep up. If you have any questions, please let me know in the chat box, and I'll ask Thomas as well. So, Thomas, can you please introduce yourself to everybody here, to Brazilian fans, to international fans, and thank you for taking the time to do this.
Well, hello, my name is Thomas OLDE HEUVELT. I'm the writer for Hex, and I see that my image is standing still in the YouTube thing. Is that correct? Or am I moving, actually?
I think now you're moving.
I am. Awesome. Well, very good. Well, hello, Brazil.
Okay. So are you excited to be talking? Is this Hex have been published in how many countries now?
Yeah, the book's been out now in I think 26 countries.
Oh my god.
It's amazing. It's beyond all my expectations that I had before I wrote it. And then all these countries make these really amazing covers for it. And I really love the dark side cover. It's pretty different from everything I've seen before. So, yeah. Definitely.
So the first question that I wanted to ask you, we were talking about it before the live stream started, actually. And it's how the book changed from the Dutch edition to the English edition. So how was that process? Did you work with the translator? What changed? I heard somewhere that even the ending changed a little bit. So can you talk a bit about this adaptation that happened?
Yeah, of course. So when I wrote the book in the Netherlands, this is the Dutch edition, by the way. It came out a couple of years ago, and I wrote it about a small Dutch town.
Yeah.
And when the rights were sold to the United States and to Britain, I figured I wanted to change the setting to an American town. Why? Because, this is a book that needs to scare you. Like, when it came out in the Netherlands a couple of years ago, I got literally hundreds of messages from my readers who said they had to sleep with the lights on. And that's what you want to go for when you write a creepy book, right? So I wanted to get that same feeling from American readers.
Yeah.
And in order to really scare your reader, you need to create this perfect sense of familiarity.
Yeah.
And then you destroy it.
Thank you.
You just suck the reader in, and then you just with a sense of what they know and what is familiar to them, and then you introduce the supernatural, and then you introduce the scary things. I think that works. And if the book would have set in the Netherlands, in a small town in Holland, people from America would have asked, like, okay, how do you pronounce their names? What is the norm for these people? And therefore, what's not the norm? So I felt, I want to change that because otherwise that gets in the way of the initial emotion of fear, right? So that's why I chose to change the setting. It now doesn't set in the Netherlands anymore, but in a small town in upstate New York. And that was a lot of rewriting. I wrote the book in about 4.5 months, but I rewrote it in about a year. I also worked really closely together with the translator. Her name is Nancy Forrest Fleer. She's an amazing translator, and it was an amazing process of recreating a book you've already written, basically. And then, of course, I rewrote the ending as well, because I figured once I read the new version in English, I felt that the old ending was a bit off, and I could make it scarier by making it a bit more subtle, actually. So that's what I did.
But was it interesting to you, like you said, you changed the ending because you kind of revised the whole book, right?
Yeah, I mean, when do you ever get a chance to revise your book once it's already published? I mean, I suddenly had this opportunity with this book that's been out for 2 years or 3 years in the Netherlands, and then it gets a whole new audience in all these countries all around the world. And I figured, like, why not make it, even better? So
that's really cool.
You never really get that chance as an author. So.
Not a lot of authors get that chance. It's really cool.
Yeah.
There's someone who already asked, Paola asked, your book was so well received. There's a TV adaptation going on. Did you expect that kind of feedback, that kind of reaction from the audience?
Well, I was sure hoping for it.
I think all authors hope for it, right?
Hex is not my first book. It's my 5th book, actually, in the Netherlands. And all these years my first book was published when I was 18.
Whoa.
So I started kind of young. And all these years I've been, like, building up and up and up to create this this opportunity where actually it would be sold internationally to readers all around the world. I still remember when I was 12 years old, and I was in the bookstore in the Netherlands, in front of these shelves with Stephen King's novels. It was in I think in the 90s or something, and it was during his most popular age, basically. And all these titles from Stephen King. And I told myself, as a little boy of 12 years old, when I grow old, I want to be like that. I want to have my books all around the world on bookshelves.
That's really cool.
And I mean, Hex kind of exploded. And indeed, a TV adaptation now. I mean, how amazing is that? I really cannot wait to see what they're going to make of it.
When is it coming out? There's a date already? Director? Is everything settled?
They're in the process of writing the screenplays right now.
Okay.
There's this really cool writer. His name's Gary Dauberman. He wrote the movie adaptation of Stephen King's It that was out last year in cinema. That guy's actually writing Hex now. I think in about a couple of weeks he's going to send me the first treatment of the first season, which is really exciting. And I actually get to have gonna have some input as well. So
cool.
And then it's fingers crossed to wait and see where it will be aired. So.
That's really cool.
That's going to be really exciting. I think if they do it well, you can make a really, really exciting and scary series from this book.
There's already a question kind of related to that. Rafael asked if you intend to expand the universe of Hex, or is that a standalone in your set on that?
Yeah, I kind of write standalone novels. I don't really like reading series, actually, and I've never written one. I've been getting that question a lot. Is there going to be like a sequel to Hex? I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you read the book, I don't know if it leaves a lot of options for sequels when you finished it.
Okay, guys, everybody dies. I'm going to spoil. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm not going to say that, but.
Oh God! Now I'm thinking all the theories of what could happen.
You just have to see that for yourself. But no, I don't know. I'd rather write. I mean, I actually am writing a new book, a completely new novel, and I mean, I like when you finish reading a book, it's done. The story's over.
True. It's cool. I do like series. I like when there's an expanded universe and you get so caught up in that universe and those characters and you just want more of them. But I do see the beauty in standalones as well. Obviously, they both have their pros.
Obviously, yeah.
There's something really interesting. There's a part of the book right in the beginning, right? I think it's the first chapter when Tyler goes to his dad and he asks the question. Either he would save his own son, or if he would save a whole village in Sudan, I think. And there's a metaphor to sacrifice there, and I see a metaphor to sacrifice in other parts of the book. And I was curious why you chose to elaborate on the concept of sacrifice. Either literally, we talk a lot about death, and in the matters of sacrifice, when he says sometimes you have to sacrifice things for Black Spring. That's another sentence that Steve says, actually, I think. And it got to me. It's like sometimes you have to sacrifice things to Black Spring. Black Spring. So can you elaborate on that? Is that something that you consciously did? Like, I'm going to discuss sacrificing here, or just happened naturally throughout the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of moral questions, moral dilemmas that everyone, it's this mind game. So what would you rather do? For parents who have two children, which of the child would you save if you have to choose? These kind of impossible moral dilemmas, but sometimes they get really real when life throws you really bad things. It's the stuff that that brings up the dark side in people, and I think the psychological dark side of human beings is the core of a good horror story. I mean, this is not only a story about a witch haunting this town, but it's mostly a story about how these people react to the haunting, to her presence, and how it brings up, the dark side in every.
Like, it brings up a side that sometimes you don't even know you have until you're put in a certain situation, right?
Exactly, and the thing is, we all would believe that we would react differently if we get put in a situation like that. If we get pushed in, under strain, and that we get faced with this supernatural presence haunting us down, not being able to escape, or you commit suicide. All these things that really pressure your life and your surroundings, and we all would imagine that we would react differently. We would behave ourselves. We would stay rational. But you cannot really say that of yourself. You can only hope you will. But I believe not a lot has to happen to really change behaving human beings into monsters, and that's what this book is about.
Whoa.
Whoa. Dark, right?
We got deep here.
Yeah.
But I think that's what attracted me most to the book. Like, I really like paranormal and supernatural stuff, but once I started reading it, I realized this is not about just a witch or a curse. There's different characters that react differently to everything, and there's a lot of judgment on how they handle each thing. Like, I always go to the characters. Like, I always relate mostly to the characters. They're so not outcasted, but like Griselda. I was like, oh damn, this character's so good. Oh, this is so cool.
I love writing her. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite character that you wrote?
Well, I mean, the character I relate to most myself is Tyler. He's the son of the protagonist, basically, and he himself is a protagonist in a way, so he's a viewpoint character. He's a 17-year-old kid who's idealistic and who has, dreams. I mean, the curse that this witch puts on this town is that you cannot leave. If you leave town, the longer you stay away, the darker your thoughts become, and you commit suicide in the end. So her curse restrains you from actually leaving town. And he has dreams. He wants to see the whole wide world, and he wants to travel, he wants to study and all that, which is impossible because of the situation. Yeah. And I like his idealism, I like his positivity, and he wants to change the situation, not only for himself, but for the whole town. But that said, the character I had most fun with writing was Griselda, who is the butcher. She has a butcher shop in town. She's an outcast. She's been abused in the past. But in the end, she's this kind of anti-hero, and her ways of dealing with this fear of the supernatural presence of Katherine, the witch who walks town, is that she every Wednesday afternoon she sacrifices this platter of homemade pate to her. Yeah. Just to be on a good side. And I mean, that's how practical people would get. I mean, imagine if your town would be haunted by this witch. What would you do? What would you do? And I mean, people get annoyed by her. Yeah. It's not only, I mean, they get scared, okay, but they also get annoyed. If she ends up in the corner of your living room for like the 10th time in a row,
that is so creepy.
Used to it, and they just hang a dishcloth over her face, and life goes on. that's how practical you get. So
Yeah.
this woman, you know, she sacrifices meat to her just to be on the good side.
Yeah.
And of course, later in the book, I mean, bad stuff starts to happen, and she needs to, you know, live up to her sacrifices, make them bigger. So she gets this. Well, I won't spoil it, but I mean, she
does something else
bigger than just a piece of dead meat that actually fits in a big shopping bag. So.
Yeah, I've read that part. That part. That was really creepy. Let me just give a reminder to the.
Well, it's kind of funny as well. I mean, it's not only a creepy book. It's
I think like there's some funny stuff. You were talking about Tyler. I was going to say that I really like him because he's a YouTuber, so I really related to him. Yeah. Like, turn on the camera and you do this, and when you turn off, it's a different thing. Like, I could really relate to him. Yeah. Just so you know, now the book is out now in English, but if you guys are Brazilians in Portuguese, I'll just say this in English and Tassi can translate, but the first 3 chapters of the book are available in Portuguese on Darkside's website, and I'll put the link in here later so you guys can check it out as well. But you can read the 3 first chapters. Sorry, I live in São Paulo. There's a lot of motorcycles. And I'll be giving away a special kit with the book. The book is still in pre-order here in Brazil. It'll be launched in a few days, actually. I think next week. But I'll give a giveaway of 2 special items. I can't say what's inside of them. Thomas can know it's special, it's a surprise, but you'll see it later. Anyway, I will do this at the end of the giveaway, at the end of the live stream. So wait for it. It's going to be really, really cool. I forgot.
I can't wait to hear what you think of those first 3 chapters.
Yeah, the first 3 chapters are really cool. Like the part when you mentioned that Katherine is in the living room, I'll just put a dishcloth on top of it. When I started reading it, and just, like, grandma's here. Like, wait, what? I got really confused for a second, and I read it and reread it, and then, wait, what? And I was like, okay, I get it. And it's just so creepy. Everybody that I mentioned the book, so there's this book, and there's this town which is haunted, and there's this witch, and she can just appear out of nowhere, like in the corner of your room in the middle of the night, which happens. And everybody was, it's so creepy. Yes, it's creepy. It's really creepy, but...
I'm glad this spooked you out, because that's the intention of this book.
To me, it's
amazing. I mean, and like I said, when the book came out in Holland, hundreds of people emailed me or messaged me on Instagram or Facebook that they actually had to sleep with the lights on, and that's what I get. You know,
I don't get to that level
now
yet.
These messages come in from the whole world, like from Argentina and from Australia and from wherever. So that's pretty amazing that, you know, somewhere around the world there's someone reading your book and, you know, getting a good, you know, creep out of it. So.
Not having a good night's sleep.
Yes.
Well, I don't get to the point that I have to sleep with the lights on, but it's like this constant fear of something's going to happen, something like this anticipation of something's going to happen in the story, and hell's gonna break loose. I'm literally waiting for hell to break loose. But
you know what these people email me is mostly the thing that gets them most is just the primordial fear of this figure standing at the foot of your bed all night long, watching you behind those stitched up eyes, and just watching you, staring at you, not knowing what she wants from you, but just standing there, and that invades your
privacy,
private, you know, your privacy, and that's what really gets people worked up.
There is a question from Andrew. He says, "How did you come up with the idea of mixing something so old, like legends about witches, with something so modern? Like, we have the Hex app, and it's a modern city. We have Tyler, the YouTuber with the GoPro, and everything's modern except for the witch. How did you come up with that idea?" Which he says is extremely original, and a lot of other authors, I think Stephen King said, it's really original, right? So
yeah, that was, by the way, awesome when he tweeted about it. I mean, he's my childhood hero, and the book had come out for like 3 weeks, I think, in America and England, and then suddenly he tweeted about it, and just the idea that he had read it, that was pretty awesome, yeah. And then, of course, all the publishers put the quote on the cover, and you know, he really did some really good stuff for me. But yeah, it kind of makes sense to incorporate all these modern day techniques and twists, because I mean, imagine again, if your own hometown would be haunted by this omnipresent supernatural being, this witch, and she is from the 17th century. She is old, and she's been walking these streets and entering people's homes for hundreds of years now, and never leaves. And nobody knows how to get rid of her. But imagine, I mean, time goes on, and nowadays we have internet, and nowadays we have webcams. Nowadays we have all these things that make it both easier on the people and harder, because their biggest fear is that the secret will leak. So with internet, it's very easy for secrets to leak, of course. So this town incorporated this whole. It turns into this Big Brother kind of society where everything you do online is watched. Social media is blocked. You cannot talk about the witch, and if you do, there's like heavy punishment. And then, of course, I mean, what would people nowadays do if you have a situation like this? Everyone would have an app on their phones. In this case, the Hex app, where you could report sightings and you could track her down where she is, so that you can, stay out of her way, basically. I mean, people get clever. So it makes sense to deal with a supernatural presence like that in a modern way.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like before, in centuries back, they probably have a group of people who take shifts walking around town and checking out where she was and just keeping guard. And now we have an app. We have an app for everything.
Still, they have to do that because they have to get practical. Because whenever she stands next to like public roads or something like that, they have to hide her because they're afraid of people from outside driving by and spotting her. So they get really practical, like they put it like a tool shed over her head or like a bush or anything. It gets a little silly every now and then, like at Easter she appears in the supermarket, so they put this big Easter bunny over her.
I remember that.
I mean that's how creative you get, right? To hide a secret like that.
There are a lot of people asking if you have, why did you choose to talk about witches? Like, do you have any legends or folklore in the Netherlands about witches, or like why did you choose that of all the supernatural creatures? Have you read other books like the comic book Witches or Harry Potter or anything that got you caught up in that?
No, it actually started when I was age 7, I think, when my uncle told me Roald Dahl's The Witches. I don't know if you've read that, the children's novel. It's amazing. It's about this little boy that is on a vacation in a hotel, and there's this whole conference of evil witches there that basically talking about how to exterminate all the children in the world. He gets caught up in their meeting. When he told me the story, and I was scared by it, and then I saw the movie. It was in cinema back then, and it was like the time before CGI. And I don't know if you've seen the movie, but there's this scene where Angelica Huston, when she plays the Grand High Witch, she removes her face, like this mask, she peels it off her face, and it's scary. And I was 7 years old, and that image haunted me for like months, and for months. I screamed my mother awake in the middle of the night.
Oh my God!
Witches everywhere. And then it turned winter here, and all the women started wearing gloves like the witches in the book and in the film. So for about a year, I didn't trust any woman anymore. So that's how it started out.
Oh my God! You watched that at 7, and then you read the first Stephen King novel at 11. What?
Yeah.
Why?
That was a couple of years after my mom tried to keep me away from it as long as possible. But that same uncle also traumatized me with real stories. Like, for instance, we would take hikes in the woods around where I live. It's actually also the same woods where the book sets. And he would tell us, like, whenever we would come across like a fairy ring, a ring of like toadstools on the trail, he would say things like that witches had danced that night right there, and that's because that's the reason for the fairy ring. And you had to walk past it with your eyes closed, and if you didn't, you'd get 7 years of bad luck.
There's a scene.
And I believed it. I believed everything he said. And that's the beauty of being a kid. You believe everything you say, whether it's real or supernatural. But you know, that kind of planted the seeds to write this book.
There's a scene with that on the book, isn't there? Steve.
Exactly. I put that scene in there. Exactly.
I guess there's so many cool questions on the chat. I'm just going to mix a little thing. I'll do one of mine, but they're great questions here. I wanted to ask you, Catherine's story is an example, classic example of the witch hunt in the 15th century. Like, it was a movement of intolerance with religion, but it was also kind of misogynistic and prejudice with everything that was different. Like 70% of the people accused of witchcraft were women. And in the book, we see some feminine characters being not well treated, like abused, or like Griselda and Catherine, of course. How was it, the research and creating Black Spring and creating a modern city that will have archaic behaviors from the people? Like, maybe was it the confinement, or was it the situation? And mostly, how was it to create those female characters and put them in the situation? Was it something that you connected Catherine's story with the characters? Was it something that was conscious, or just happened naturally?
It kind of happened naturally. What was interesting to me is to ask myself the question: how much would it take for a society nowadays, our society, to crumble in the same way that it did in the 15th and 16th century, in the medieval times, when all these women were accused of witchcraft?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, you hope that society would have been evolved by now, that we wouldn't do that kind of stuff anymore. But if you look at, you know, real life situations nowadays, like in Europe nowadays, a couple of years ago, this big influx of refugees from Syria, from the war, came into Europe. And even something like that, something real, people in need that come into your country, like a strange element from another place that comes into your country, that caused a lot of trouble in all these countries in Europe. And it caused really dark human behavior, like riots and all that stuff. And that's something real and something that's people in need. But imagine that something even stranger would appear in people's lives, like a supernatural presence, like in this book. I mean, society would really easily break down to the same kind of behaviors that that those people did in the 15th century. There's a key scene in the book. There's a law in town that if you endanger the townsfolk by talking about the witch, or tempting the witch, or taunting the witch, there's actually some corporal punishment, like this flogging. And that's a law that hasn't been used for maybe even 60, 70 years. But it's still there to scare people off. And I wanted to write this scene where a couple of nowadays modern-day American kids, you know, they break the rules, and where they would actually be punished in town live on a scaffold in front of the whole town watching. If I could make that scene work, then the book would be a success, I thought, because that's exactly, you know, those old days coming back to our days.
And have you ever thought that Catherine is a scary character by itself? Like, the idea of to me a good book is a book that has me believe in something, that when I read it, it's like, oh, this is a real story of something that's happening, and this person who wrote this knows the truth and we don't know. Like, that's, I kind of got that feeling with Hags, like, oh my god, there's a city somewhere with a witch and nobody knows. I kind of got that feeling. To me, that's what makes a good narrative. That's what makes a good story. And have you ever thought how...
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Have you ever thought how the scarier thing is not Catherine, but that idea that you have? Like, did you meant to the idea of the humans, of people becoming those brutal and like savage behavior is more scary than the actual supernatural stuff happening?
Exactly. I mean, and that also goes back to the question you asked earlier about the the oppression of women in the 15th century, and also of Katherine Van Wyler in the book, she's actually not the real evil factor in the book. It's the townsfolk themselves. She is a misunderstood mother. And yes, she is creepy, and there is some really horrible things going on caused by her. But for everything, there's a reason, and you'll find when you read the book that you start viewing her character differently throughout the book towards the ending. But I won't spoil that yet, because you have to read that for yourself.
Yeah, I think I'm like at the point where the turning point. Like, I think I'm right there. Oh my god. I got nervous now. Oh my god. What's going to happen? Oh boy. Okay, someone asked, a couple of people asked, what's your biggest fear? Is that humans are going to come back to that savage thing?
No, I think my biggest fear is actually the thought of losing a loved one, someone you really care for, whether it's your partner or your parents or your kids or whatever. And that's also a fear I deal with in the book. The father and son relationship is really important in the book. Like Tyler asks in the first chapter, who would you rather sacrifice, your own son or a whole town somewhere in Africa? And of course, the moral answer would be, you'd sacrifice one person. But of course, the real answer is everyone would save their son, of course. But yeah, the fear of losing a loved one, I think that's, for a lot of people, their biggest fear.
Yeah, I think I was afraid you're gonna say like, oh, I'm afraid of the dark. I think Stephen King's afraid of the dark.
Everyone is kind of afraid of the dark. Like,
I think it's mostly a fear of the unknown, right?
I live in a wooded area, and I am not really happy of going out in the woods at night, for instance. Just you never know what lurks on those paths, and between the dark trees. And I mean, I'm a mountain climber, but I'm also a little bit afraid of heights. So I try to challenge myself in overcoming fears. But yeah, I mean, everybody has a lot of fears, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm afraid of stairs and ladders. Like, stairs are not like fixed, like they just touch something, and it's that whole support they have to have. I'm terrified of ladders and stairs, and those stairs are like rounded. They go around like a column. I never, like I shake. I'm shaking. It's terrifying to me. I
love ladders. I climb everything I can.
I love hiking and all that, but not ladders, not stairs. Definitely not. There's a question by Gian, and he asked, where do you get inspiration to writing? And there's any habits or pet peeve that you have while writing a book? Like, do you stay alone in a room, or do you listen to some kind of music? Any rituals you have?
Yes, when I write, I like to be alone. I like to be secluded from the rest of the world. I recently moved into a new house here in the woods. I lived in a city before, but I like the seclusion of the woods.
Yeah.
I like to start in the mornings. I write all day. And when I mean I write all day, is that like you live a book, you wake up with it and you go to bed with it.
Oh my god!
I'm not literally typing words all day, but you're living the book. So social distraction is very annoying for me when I'm writing. So I try not to meet friends and stuff when I'm in the process. I take a couple of days off every week, of course, but I mean, yeah, I like to have my me time when I write, basically, and I write about 3 pages a day. Sometimes when I'm fast, I write 4 or 5 pages, but I try to keep up a certain pace that you can finish a novel in not too long of a time. Which hasn't been working for a while now, by the way, because my book, I've been working on it for 2.5 years now. But
yeah, I was about to ask if you're working on another book right now.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it's been going on for a while now. There was since Hex blew up so much, there's been a bit of pressure on it. Like, and it's awesome. Believe me, it's awesome when Stephen King says your book is like brilliant, but then with every other paragraph you're writing, you're thinking it to yourself. Okay, so what's Stephen King going to say about this? You know, is it good enough? So that's the kind of pressure you put on yourself. But you know, since a couple of months, I'm back into it. I've also been really busy touring. I mean, I've toured in the United States, through Europe, and this spring there will be a lot of new countries as well where the book will be released. So that's a lot of takes up a lot of time away from writing. And you know, there are actually writers who can write during tours and during when they do gigs and they have talks and they write in a hotel room or something or in the plane. And like I said, I need my seclusion. So,
since you're talking about touring, I'll take a minute to say this in Portuguese. Gente, já que ele tá falando de viajar, então eu tenho uma novidade para vocês, anunciando aqui em primeira mão que o Thomas vem pro Brasil! Thomas vem pro Brasil, gente, em junho. Thomas OLDE HEUVELT? I'm trying, I promise!
Awesome!
De qualquer forma, ele vai estar aqui no Brasil, ele vai viajar por São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro e Porto Alegre. Ainda não tem as datas específicas, ainda não tem os eventos específicos, mas o Thomas vem para o Brasil, a gente está muito empolgado com isso. Eu vou deixar ele falar um pouquinho sobre isso também. Lógico, em inglês, Tassi vai traduzir para vocês. So, the news is out, you're coming to Brazil. Let us know how excited you are. A lot of people already ask, how do you feel about the reception in Brazil about the book? They're really, a lot of people freaking out. A lot of people freaking out. Like,
Yeah. No, yeah, in June I'll be in Brazil, exactly, to Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Porto Alegre. And I really, really look forward to it. I've never been in Brazil before. I'm going to the festival in Porto Alegre. I think that's called the Odisseia de...
Fantástica, yeah.
Yeah, that one, yeah. And I'll do signings in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, and I'd love to meet all you readers. So come out and say hi when I'm there.
Yes! A lot of people are really happy about it. They're asking your expectations. Someone invited you to have cake at their place.
I'm happy to. Give me cake. I love cake. Definitely. No, I'm really excited because, I mean, Dark Side, I think, is an amazing publisher. I mean, I love the way they do their books. They really look spectacular and so different from any other books, other editions that I've seen before. And also, I love the way they do their social media, like for Hex with the, you know, all those people with the stitched up eyes.
Yes.
You know, they're really good at that. And so, yeah, so far the reception's been really amazing. I really look forward to seeing what it will be like when the book's actually out there and people start reading it and telling their friends and all that. Because that's been proven very worthwhile all around the world. This is the kind of book that has been proven that if people read it, they give it to their friends and they say, hey, this is a really scary book, read that. And that's what I love about being in touch with readers around the world, because that reader involvement is very important to me, and I really love that. So
that's really, really great. We're really excited to have you here. You're obviously welcome. A lot of people are really excited. They're offering you cake, they're offering you coffee, they're offering you their own beds, and a lot of Brazilian foods you have to try here. So
what is the best kind of Brazilian food?
Well, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't eat it now, but there is a kind of a pastry that's fried. Everything that's fried, it's extra good. So it's called coxinha. So it's like a drop. It looks like a drop, like a water drop, but it's a fried dough.
I heard of that.
With chicken inside. And sometimes there's other stuff. They can have with other stuff, but the most traditional one is with chicken and like cream cheese. So it's like at the size of a fist.
I'm gonna try for that. My sister actually mentioned that. My sister has lived in Cuiabá and Recife for a while.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, and she mentioned that chicken-filled pastry, deep fried stuff.
There's a lot of stuff really actually. Good. Like we have pão de queijo, which is like a, it's cheese bread, but it's not the cheese bread you're thinking about. Well, we'll take you to try everything. Don't worry about it. I'll talk to Raquel. We'll take you on the whole food tour around the country. And each state you have different things to eat. So it's going to be really fun. It's going to be really fun.
I can't wait for it.
So I do have one less of mine questions. There are a couple more from the chat box. But I wanted to ask you, so there's an adaptation of Hacks to the English version. So a lot of things you mentioned had to change, like this name or this thing or this location. But are you interested in writing a story that more close to home, like something that's related to the folklore or the legends or traditions in Holland? Not Holland, sorry, Netherlands.
Well, you can call it either Holland or Netherlands.
Okay, good.
It matters, the same thing. Yeah, I mean, in a way, Hacks was that story. It's a really Dutch story in a sense that it really, I mean, there's a lot of witchcraft history, or at least the witch hunt and witch accusation history in the town where it actually sets. Real people were hung. When they were dead, they were thrown into these witch pools, and these pools are still out there in the woods. It's really only 10 kilometers away from where I live. Actually, it's really close to where I live. So there's a lot of history there, and also the real Dutchness in this book is that the down-to-earth way people deal with this kind of stuff. I mean, I mentioned the dishcloth before. I always say that, you know, when a sane person sees a 17th century witch with sewn shut eyes peer in a corner of their bedroom, they would run and scream.
Yeah.
But when a Dutch person sees that, they would like hang a towel over her face and read the newspaper. That's how down to earth Dutch people are. That's just a part of our upbringing and of our culture. We also don't have a culture at all of telling each other scary stories or horror stories or fantasy stories. It's just not part of the Dutch breed, I guess. But that said, I mean, that down-to-earthness is it's a great asset in a book like this, like how these people deal with the fear of Katherine Van Wyler. So yeah, and that I kept in the American edition of the book. So there's definitely some Dutch influences in there. My new book, which I'm still finishing, I'm about 350 pages in now. That sets partly in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, partly in New York, and partly in Switzerland in the mountains.
Wow.
Because like I'm a mountaineer and I climb in Swiss Alps a lot, so I wanted to do something with mountains. So yeah, I mean, I love to incorporate, you know, the local legends of several places, and maybe someday I'll even write a story about Brazil.
Yes, you do the research here. There are some questions, some people that ask if you ever read anything Brazilian literature or have heard of anything of the Brazilian culture.
Well, I've heard a lot of Brazilian culture because my sister has lived for a while in Brazil. She speaks Portuguese, or Brazilian Portuguese fluently. I don't. I can only say like
we'll teach you, don't worry.
But apart from that, I haven't read any Brazilian books, I think. No.
We'll have to give you some. Don't worry. We'll figure it out.
What is your favorite Brazilian author?
I read a lot of YA, and I do like how Brazilian YA is growing. Like I don't know if you have that in Netherlands as well, but like here in Brazil, we grew up watching a lot of US movies and reading a lot of US books. So the US culture is really familiar to us, but it's a completely different reality from our reality. So when you see the US high schools with the lockers and kids taking the school bus, that's not us. Like we don't have lockers. We use uniform to go to school. We don't dress up. We don't have the yellow school bus. Our parents drive us on the way to work, or we take the city bus. So it's a different reality. So I like how there's a lot of YA authors, Brazilian YA authors, rising up now to do that. I think now we have smaller movements of all genres, like horror and scary books are not that big in here, but there's a small community that is so rich, so rich. Dark Side has one book. It's called Ultra Carne. It's by Cesar Bravo, and it's a great book. Like, it's so creepy and so gross. It's like a horror gore movie book.
Okay.
My favorite, though, it's a classic, which is Jorge Amado. I think we can find it in English if you want to read it. But that's the thing. It's so local, you know. It's such a good portrait of our culture in our day by day, in our conflicts. So to me, it's really close to home, and it's about a bunch of kids. They live on the streets, and they live like on the beach under like a wooden thing, and they're street kids. So sometimes they steal, sometimes they dance on the street for money, sometimes they find smaller jobs, and they're just kids. It's really interesting, I promise.
You know what I love about the fact that my book's been out in so many countries, that whenever I go to these other countries, the people tell me stories. They tell me like urban legends. They tell me superstitions that they have, and I love that. It's so inspirational. Last year I was in Croatia.
Whoa, cool!
And the people who organized this festival, where I was a guest, they told me this really creepy urban legend about a tunnel that was near where the festival was held. And I actually turned that into a short story, and it's just been released on Tor.com, the American website, Tor.com.
Cool.
You can find it right there. It's called You Know How the Story Goes. And that's just based on the local legend that they told me. And so I hope when I'm in Brazil, you're going to tell me a lot of your own local legends and superstitions, and because that really
helps your brain going. No, we have a lot of it, and what I love about Brazil, like, I'm really patriotic on this. Like, each state that you go, you notice a difference in the way people act, and the way that people talk, and the way our legends, our way of life. Each state is completely different. Like, I'm from the northeast part of Brazil, like close to Recife, but it's a different state. So, like, in Recife, your sister probably knew some stories that are really local, like legends that are only from there. And my city has a lot of legends only from my city. And São Paulo has its own, and Rio has its own. You're gonna have a blast of inspiration while you're here. Like, in my city,
I remember a story that my sister told me when she was living in Cuiabá.
Yeah,
she had a boyfriend there, and they owned this piece of land outside the city in the woods. And there were these little towns everywhere in the woods. And there was this one town. There was a legend that, or a story that one of the people in town was believed to be a werewolf, and so they actually went to that town. And the reason that people thought he was a werewolf was because he was a very hairy man. He had like hair all over his face, all over his body. But my sister and her boyfriend actually visited that town, and they actually met that man. But the really scary part was that it was like this jungle kind of environment, basically, and there were like little flies everywhere, and they were circling your head and circling your body. They were annoying flies everywhere. You had to really slap them away from your body. Yeah, and they were around everyone except for that one person who was believed to be the werewolf. So that kind of incorporated that story.
We have a lot of stories, like from my city. Like, shortly, my city where I'm from is an island. It's not a small island, but it's an island, and we have the story that the churches always had these tunnels where the priests will go from one church to another without walking on the streets. They would go through these tunnels. And then a lot of things, like the Dutch came in and they revolution, like we were colonized by the French, but then the Dutch tried to steal the city, and then the Portuguese, whatever. But when they came, they closed off those tunnels. But when they were doing it, they found a giant snake, a huge snake, and the snake skins, like when they change it. And the legend is that there's a snake living in those tunnels. No one goes down those tunnels anymore. But they do go around the city. Like there were churches all around the city. So the snake is growing, the serpent actually. It's growing every year. And when the head meets the tail, it will wake up and drag the whole city down into the ocean.
I love it. I love it.
Sounds
awesome.
it's a whole thing. But anyway, there's a lot of people are really excited to tell you their legends like werewolves and tales of the Amazon. And some people say Recife was colonized by the Dutch. So there's a lot of stories and urban legends. It's going to be a blast when you come here. You're going to have fun.
I look forward to it a lot.
Okay. So some people have some quick questions. So let's just do like a quick, you say the first thing that comes to your mind. Ready?
Okay.
Okay. Favorite book?
Favorite book is Jan Martel's Life of Pi.
Really? I hate that book. Okay. Favorite movie?
It's beautiful. What was that? Sorry.
Favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. Oh man, there's so many. Favorite scary movies, probably The Ring or The Blair Witch Project. Favorite movie in general, I really like The Shawshank Redemption.
That's good.
There's again, Life of Pi is a lovely movie as well.
The movie's great.
Yeah.
The book, I hate it. We'll discuss it later.
I loved it. I loved the way he made you reconsider the whole story in the last 10 pages.
Favorite scary author, probably.
Well, of all time, that's probably Stephen King. That's kind of obvious. I mean, I'm really of the generation of writers that is influenced heavily by him.
Yeah.
I love Paul Tremblay. Paul Tremblay is an American author who wrote A Head Full of Ghosts. Mm-hmm. It's a brilliant book. He writes really creepy stuff nowadays.
Favorite band?
Favorite band, the Baseballs. That's a German band. They turn modern day hits into 50s rock and roll songs, which is really, really awesome.
Cool. Favorite TV series? Hex doesn't count.
No, it's not out yet, so. Stranger Things.
Cool, nice choice.
And Dark, if you get a chance to watch Dark, it's a German series that literally is really dark. It's really creepy.
Biggest dream
It's on Netflix.
Okay, so Netflix, we'll watch it. What's your biggest dream in life?
My biggest dream in life? That people all around the world continue reading my books, and that movies will be made from them, and that I get to, these little cameo roles in my own movies. that really is my dream since I was a little kid. So yeah,
that's a cool dream. Any regrets?
No. I look back at bad stuff that happens in life in a way that you learn from it. Mm-hmm. If you regret things, I mean, that doesn't bring you anything. You just should learn from bad experiences and go on and do differently in the future.
Cool. Favorite food?
I love everything from Thailand, Thai food. Banana flour salad especially. Do you have banana flour salad in Brazil? I
don't think so. We can look it up. We can try.
It's brilliant. Banana flour is like this magical fruit that, I mean, it's the purple flour on top of banana.
I didn't even know bananas had flowers.
Yeah, and the way a banana turns brown when you leave it for a couple of days, if you cut banana flowers, they turn brown instantly. So you have to really quickly put them on acid, like on lime juice or anything, and they make this really amazing sweet, sour, spicy salad with it. It's brilliant.
Cool. A lot of people are fans of Dark. You mentioned the series. A lot of people are talking about it.
Yeah, it's creepy.
Favorite place on Earth?
Favorite place on Earth, that would probably be a valley that I know in Switzerland, in the Swiss Alps. It's extremely beautiful.
Cool.
It's called Val d'Anivier in French. There are some really high, rugged mountains surrounding it, and there's this beautiful lake in the middle of it. It's like a paradise on Earth.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're good. And now, guys, if you want to... I'll just say this in Portuguese. I'm so used to English. Gente, agora vamos pro sorteio. Vou sortear os 2 kits. Então, para você participar, tem que escrever hashtag Thomas no Brasil. Tô escrevendo aqui no chat agora. Então, você tem que escrever e só precisa mandar uma vez. Não precisa mandar mais do que uma vez. Pode mandar isso e você vai estar elegível para participar. E aí, daqui a pouquinho, eu vou fazer o sorteio aqui de 2 pessoas e o bot vai falar aqui no chat. So, we're ready to do the giveaway. Someone asked if you like video games. What's your favorite?
I haven't played video games in a long, long while. I mean, every now and then I do some racing games with a couple of friends, but that doesn't really count, right? So I haven't been playing games in a long, long time.
Yeah, that's okay.
Just have no time for it. I'm too much involved in writing and reading. And,
that's good. I think people ask, oh, what's your favorite video game? But they'll prefer you stay writing and keep writing and publish other books and you haven't played video games.
Exactly, yeah.
Let me see if there's any more questions that people asked here. So the author that I mentioned, the Dark Side author of Jack Carnan, he's actually here watching the live stream.
Awesome. Hi.
You'll probably get to meet him while you're here. A lot of Stranger Things fans as well.
That series rocked, really. I love the characters. It's so well executed.
I have to watch the second season, season 2. I haven't watched.
You should. It's totally worth it.
Yeah, I know. A lot of people say that. I don't have the time. I'm making YouTube videos. No, I'm lying. Okay, someone asked what you're currently reading. Like some people noticed the bookshelf and they were curious about it. What's your current read?
It's a book called The Chalk Man. It's been out in, I think it's a British book. I think it's a creepy book about these chalk figures that appear out of nowhere on paper, and there's murders and all that stuff. It's a thriller, and I don't know yet if it turns supernatural or not. I'm not I'm not that far into it yet, but it's generally creepy so far.
Okay. Okay, so I'll just switch back to Portuguese so I can do the giveaway. Então, gente, vamos lá para o sorteio. Já tem mais de 100 pessoas aqui participando. Primeiro, first result is Matt CB. Matt, se você tá vendo aqui ainda, manda uma mensagem para ver que você recebeu. Just so you know, guys, if you're international and if you're selected to the giveaway, I'm sorry, but we can only give it to people who are currently living in Brazil. So if you do, let us know so we can roll it again. Matt, se você está assistindo, manda uma mensagem aqui pra gente confirmar. E manda seu e-mail pra gente poder ter esse contato. Manda o e-mail pra gente aqui na mensagem. Vamos esperar um pouquinho pra ver se você responde. So we have the first winner, and then we'll have the second.
Congratulations.
I think some people know the Chalkman. Some people are going to look for it. Have you read any other of the...
there's some recommendations. I see it there.
Yeah. Have you read any other books that were published by Darkside? Or you haven't seen their catalog yet?
I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into what their list is. I'm probably, yeah, but I'm not sure if I can name them.
That's okay. We will probably have some too.
I wish I could read Portuguese because I would love to own all those Darkside books just because they look so cool.
Well, you can learn a little bit in here and you can give them to your sister. She reads Portuguese.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have
I can
the
show
first
you some
one.
really creepy covers for Hex.
Oh,
this
cool.
Is the Polish edition of the book, which is really creepy, I think.
I really like that edition.
Yeah, it's pretty. I like the witch figure that's standing there, and also the UK version of the book.
I like that you have a small display for the book right there. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean,
That one I think it's my favorite actually because it has the
this
face.
This is beautiful. Yeah, I love it. The stitch up letters, and then there's books from Japan.
Whoa, cool!
Small books right there, and I just cannot read it, but it's fun to see it like that.
I don't think I ever saw.
Out in many countries now, so.
I don't think I ever saw a Japanese book open up. I only see the cover. Okay, so we have the first winner. He sent his email. Obrigada, Matt, por mandar. Agora vamos pro segundo. Vamos ver. Fábio Sobrosa, você ganhou. Manda aqui o seu e-mail, manda aqui que você tá aqui na live, que você tá assistindo. E a gente vai. E aí eu pego o seu e-mail e a gente vai mandar o kit. Parabéns, Matt. Parabéns, Fábio. Vamos esperar um pouquinho. Someone asked if you know how to say anything in Portuguese. Anything at all.
Yes, I can say bom dia.
Bom dia, yeah, cool.
Obrigado. Como vai? Muito bem.
Oh, cool. You know
1,
some.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Oh my God! Yeah, you're doing pretty cool.
That I remember. I mean, my grandfather used to own a house in Portugal.
Ah, so okay.
We would go there every year around Easter, just for some vacation. So I picked up a couple of words, but I mean that's about it.
That's fine. You can do well with Brazil knowing all of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty good with languages, so I'll probably pick up some more when I'm there.
Okay, awesome. So we're crossing the 1 hour. We're at 1 hour and 8 minutes here. Pessoal, quem não ganhou, vai ter outras oportunidades quando o Thomas estiver aqui. A gente com certeza vai ter mais eventos, vocês vão poder encontrar com ele, pegar autógrafo. E não esqueçam de comprar o livro na pré-venda também, isso ajuda muito a fazer mais eventos. E Thomas, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us in here. If you have any questions, any messages to your Brazilian fans?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. And like I said, I cannot wait to meet you all. My readers are very important to me. A story is nothing without a reader. It's just, a closed book is just dead wood, basically. And it takes your imagination to bring it alive. And that's what I love about being a writer, that you have an interactive relationship with your readers. So I cannot wait to come to Brazil in June and meet you all there.
Aí, gente, muito obrigada por participarem aqui da live. Não esquece que a live vai ficar salva. Então, se vocês perderam alguma coisa, querem assistir de novo, podem rever tudinho aqui. Muito obrigada por acompanharem. Eu vejo vocês na próxima live. So, that's it. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody. Good evening, everybody who watched internationally. And we'll see Thomas in Brazil in June. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much. Stay tight.